Well, here we are. I made it to 100 reviews. And it took me about 8 years to get here. I am not efficient. The original Thundercats was produced by Rankin Bass Production and ran from 1985 to 1989 for an impressive 4 seasons, with a total of about 130 episodes. Though most people consider the show to have 2 seasons, as seasons 2 through 4 add up to the same amount of episodes as season 1. It's even divided like that on the DVD release. Of course, I have the complete series, and not to boast or anything, but I got one autographed by Larry Kenney, the voice of Lion-O. I met him a few times, actually. Really nice guy, by the way. Yeah, that's right, I met Lion-O for reals! Don't act like you're not jealous. Thundercats was one of the biggest shows to come out of the 80s, and as is tradition, also had a popular toy line. The Thundercats toys were really cool because they were bigger than most other figures, and they were made by everyone's favorite game company, LJN. You know, people seem to forget that they also made toys. Well, at least their toys were better than their games. And on a more personal note, Thundercats is one of the very first cartoons I remember watching when I was a kid, and it opened my eyes to a whole new world of possibilities, adventure, and imagination. You might say it's what turned me into the cartoon enthusiast that I am today. I mean, what else was I going to do with my life? Become a doctor? Though admittedly it has been a while since I've seen it. I think the last time I actually watched it was when it aired during the original Toonami run. Well, I guess it's time to watch it again and see if it's as good as I remember. Otherwise that rant I went on at the end of my last video is going to be meaningless. I am not supposed to look bad! The show opens with the Thundercats fleeing from their doomed home of Thundera as we see them watch it explode. And they're naked for some reason. Kinda takes away from the drama of the situation. Yeah, we just started and we're already at one of the most infamous moments from the show. The supposed reason is that they were so used to the environment on their planet that they simply didn't need them, and as they leave, they're given clothes to help protect them from harsh environments. Even though not much gets covered up in some cases, and later on in the show we see Thunderians on Thundera wearing clothes, so I don't know what the point of all this was. My personal theory is that someone working on the show just really wanted to see Chitara's tits. Also, how come they don't got any... You know what? We got a lot of show to sift through, so let's just move on before we overthink this too much. And this video gets demonetized. And I get arrested. Anyway, as they watch their home get destroyed, Jaga, the oldest and wisest of the Thundercats, tells the young Prince Lion-O that he must one day lead the Thundercats and wield the powerful Sword of Omens.
Thundera is gone, but the code of Thundera will live as long as you, as Lord of the Thundercats, carry it in your heart. It will be your sacred duty to rule according to that code in our new home.
I know this is a lot of responsibility to put on a 12-year-old, but everyone is counting on you. No pressure, though. Suddenly, they get attacked by mutants from the nearby planet Plundar, and their ship gets damaged. Because of this, their trip is going to take much longer, and they have to go into sleep chambers. But in order to ensure their safety during their journey, Jaga spends the remainder of his life piloting the ship.
I can't go on. I pray the robot pilot can take it from here.
That is badass. Their ship eventually crash lands on the planet Third Earth. They emerge from their capsules, but Lion-O's malfunctioned and aged him up to an adult. And now he must learn to be a responsible leader while trying to survive in this strange new world. Let's recap. This show is about a group of aliens fleeing their doomed planet, one of whom dies to ensure their safe travel. They crash land on an alien world where they have to learn to survive while their leader adjusts to the fact that he's a 12-year-old in a man's body. That is some pretty heavy stuff for a kid's cartoon meant to sell action figures. So let's meet our heroes. There's Wily Kit and Wily Cat, the Thunder Kittens. Two mischief-making little brats that are usually causing some trouble. Their weapons of choice are lassos and capsules filled with various concoctions. Also, grenades, apparently, at least according to the intro. And later on, they even get hoverboards to cruise around on. When I was a kid, I thought they were the coolest kids ever. Now that I'm a responsible adult, they're still pretty cool. Chitara, who's the fastest on the team and wields a retractable bow staff. She also has some kind of psychic power, but she uses it when only absolutely necessary, as it takes a toll on her both physically and mentally. Then there's Tygra, who's arguably the most intelligent of the group, as he has advanced engineering knowledge and designs a lot of the equipment they build when they settle into their new home. He also wields a whip that turns him invisible so he can sneak around. He's basically a nerdy cat ninja. That's awesome. Then we have Panthro, the team's other engineer and mechanic. Throughout the series, he builds their vehicles, including the iconic Thunder Tank. That's so badass it has its own theme song. But don't mess around with his machines or he gets upset.
Dang blasted! What's going on? Who's driving my Thunder Tank? When I catch that tank napper, I'll smash him into sonic smithereens!
Though there were times where he might have been a bit too prideful.
Look out! Hey! I thought you said this thing was impenetrable!
Nobody is perfect.
He's also super strong and wields some badass nunchucks, and the spikes on his suspenders can do stuff like this. How? I don't know, don't question it. Which brings us to Lion-O, Lord of the Thundercats. He wields the Sword of Omens, and embedded in the hilt is the Eye of Thundera, the most powerful treasure of the Thundercats. The sword can come to Lion-O whenever he calls it, warn him of danger, reveal the truth when he stares into it, and it can call the Thundercats and even supercharges them when a situation is dire.
Thunder! 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 Thundercats! Ho!
The downside is that the eye is also the life force of the Thundercats, so if something happens to it, it could mean doom for the team. Now, being a child trapped in a man's body, Lion-O is often brash, immature, and even a bit naive. There were a lot of bad situations that happened because he was a bit too trusting. So you'd think him having such an important and powerful item might be a bad idea. Fortunately, the sword knows when it's being used irresponsibly, and Lion-O also has a few diligent guides to help him. Jaga's spirit shows up to give guidance when he needs it. He's kind of the Thundercats' equivalent to Obi-Wan Kenobi.
The sword will only come to life to combat evil. Do you understand?
Well, yes, Jaga, I guess so, but... Jaga?
Though sometimes I think his advice could be a bit more clearer.
Take care that your dream does not turn into a nightmare.
That's all you're getting! Good luck, asshole! Also helping out Lion-O is Snarf, his loyal companion and caregiver since he was young. Younger. Snarf can easily be tossed into that category of comedic and sometimes annoying sidekick characters that were in a lot of 80s cartoons. Oftentimes these characters become the subjects of jokes and parody. But Snarf does not belong in this category. Anyone who thinks so is wrong, and I'm about to tell you why. First of all, he's a loyal friend and genuinely cares about Lion-O and the rest of the Thundercats' well-being. He even cooks for them despite that even they sometimes give him a hard time.
It's suddenly awfully cold in here.
Whoa, it sure is.
It's the door! Someone left it open!
Snarf?
No, it wasn't me.
Yeah, about that. Snarf also never backs down from a fight. When the others are in trouble, he's right beside them fighting along, and even if he gets captured, he still gives the bad guys an attitude.
Where were you rushing to, you furry fool?
None of your bird-nosy business.
At one point, the Thundercats all get captured somehow, and Snarf rescues them. Maybe now Tygra will think twice before talking back to Snarf. In fact, there are many times where he's the one that saves the day. Nobody's allowed to make fun of Snarf ever again, and if you need more proof, check out the cover of one of the old Marvel comics. Yeah, look at it! That's badass! In fact, I can take this a step further, because throughout the series, it's implied that the Snarf race may be even more powerful than the Thundercats. At one point, Jaga says something about them being the most pure beings in the galaxy, and because of that, they're immune to a lot of magic.
In all the universe, there is only one species completely devoid of all evil capabilities. That is the Snarf.
And on top of that, they're very intelligent, hard-working creatures with extensive mechanical knowledge, and they can even pilot spaceships. But one thing I always found kind of odd was that we only ever see male Snarfs. In fact, there is only one scene in the entire series where we see a female Snarf. Are you ready for this? Ah! Look at it! Oh, it's all weird and creepy. Ugh!
Thundercats will be back after these messages. Thundercats are back now.
Okay, that's about enough of my Snarf rant. Let's get back on track. So the Thundercats build themselves a base out of the wreckage of their ship and make friends with some of the locals. But not all is well on Third Earth, as the mutants that attacked them previously have also set up a base. They are Slithe, the leader, Jackalman, the coward, Monkeyan, the monkey, and Vultureman, the brains of the group. Which doesn't really say much. I think Monkeyan was always my favorite. His voice just cracks me up. But when they first arrive on Third Earth, they encounter the main villain of the series, Mumra, the Ever-Living, the shriveled corpse of an ancient sorcerer who may not look like much, but he's powered by pure evil.
Ancient spirits of evil, transform this decayed form to Mumra, the Ever-Living!
In addition, he knows all and can see everything inside of his cauldron. Now that the Thundercats are in his backyard, he's after the Eye of Thundera so he can become more powerful. And he uses every trick in the book to get it, from calling upon other villains ranging from almost as powerful as him, to low-level goons like the mutants, to various types of deception and even mind control. But he's not without his weaknesses. His powered-up form does have a time limit, and when he's weakened, he needs to return to his sarcophagus to rest. But his most fascinating weakness is he's afraid of his own reflection, which implies that he was once human and is disgusted by what he's become. Though they don't really go into it in the show. I do happen to have a comic that goes into his backstory. It talks about how he wanted to take power from the Pharaoh, so he became a servant of the ancient spirits of evil. It's pretty neat, but it came out long after the show had ended. Though I kind of like it like that because one of the cool things about this show was beyond all the regular stuff, there was an era of mystery. I mentioned before the planet they landed on was called Third Earth, which is Earth, sometime in the distant future. But you can barely tell because of how it looks now. Seems Earth is now populated by all kinds of magical creatures, anthropomorphic societies, fearsome monsters, and other alien refugees, like the Burbles. Adorable robot teddy bears from space that are awesome and totally could have had their own show.
Burbles from the planet Robert. Been here for Burble years.
Though I like how a lot of these designs are reminiscent of other Rankin Bass cartoons, like The Last Unicorn or The Hobbit. The only humans we see are either cyborgs, have been reduced to some kind of primitive state, or are in space. So, what happened to Earth? Throughout the series, we see the Thundercats make small discoveries relating to the former Earth, which are usually very interesting, like when they discover gold and consider it junk because they have no use for it.
Goodbye, junk.
My gold! My gold!
Then there was this passing remark.
What is in that gun?
An ancient formula, now a closely guarded secret. It used to be called soap.
So, soap is a closely guarded secret now. Then, how do people bathe? The future is gross. Some of the more interesting things were Mum-Ra finding the legendary sword Excalibur and trying to use it to defeat the Sword of Omens, which is one of the best episodes of Season 1 in my opinion. There's another pretty good episode where Lion-O and the kittens are in a mysterious tower full of traps and they discover the owner had been long dead in his treasure room. It's like something right out of Dungeons and Dragons. There's another episode where an ancient giant called the Ice King awakens and causes all kinds of trouble for everyone, but it turns out he just wanted to see his beloved from the past.
Hard to believe.
He wasn't such a bad guy after all.
A scene from the past. Lovely.
Why does that premise seem familiar? But the most interesting one was when Lion-O came across a deity that had been weakened because nobody's worshipped him in a long time.
I haven't been worshipped for thousands of years. That's why I'm so weak.
This could have made for a very interesting plot point, but they don't do anything with it. We only see him once and that's it, and it kind of leads into one of the major problems with the series. They introduce a lot of cool stuff, and it just goes nowhere. At one point, a character named Mum-Rana shows up, who I guess is supposed to be Mum-Ra's good counterpart. You'd think that they'd make her an important character, right? Nope. We only see her in 2 episodes in the whole series, and that's it. One of the craziest things that happened was some creature actually captured Jaga's spirit in the astral plane, which I guess is the afterworld. Lion-O goes in to save him and some other guy, I guess. This could have been a huge deal. We meet a character able to subdue powerful spirits, but again, it's never brought up again, and we never see him again. Look, I know we're supposed to be focusing on the characters so we can sell action figures, but this always bugged me. There are 65 episodes in Season 1. You'd think they would spend a little bit more time at least going into what happened to Earth. It would have been cool to see the Thundercats maybe find the ruins of one of our modern day cities and explore it. But that never happens. It would have been nice if they at least went into it a little bit. I think they imply that Mum-Ra had something to do with it, but they never explicitly say so. Or perhaps it was one of the other ancient villains they run into. Like Grune the Destroyer, who is actually a former Thundercat and comrade of Jaga. But at one point he was consumed by greed and Jaga banished him to Third Earth where he went on a rampage until he was sealed away. By who? Never explained. Because of course not. Though again, this episode was really good. Jaga's spirit shows up to face him and we get to see the ghosts of 2 cat warriors from space duel on a separate plane of existence. You know, when I explain it like that, it sounds pretty metal. Now that I think about it, there's a lot of undead stuff in this show. I already mentioned Mum-Ra and Grune, but there was this other guy, Mongor, who gets resurrected. Look at him! He's a freaking demon! Then there was this pirate named Hammerhand who died. Then Mum-Ra put his soul into a clone of Panthro for some stupid plan, but at the end of the episode he gets fully resurrected. Remember, this is a kids show. And being a kids show, we need to make toys. Which brings us to one of the best things about this show, its extensive cast of side characters. There are villains like the evil mutant Rataro and Driller, who is often forced to do Mum-Ra's bidding. And of course, there are heroes. I already mentioned the Burbles, but there was also Hachiman, a samurai warrior from the past Mum-Ra called upon to fight Lion-O, but after seeing that he is a man of honor, he becomes his friend. There's Snowman, the Snowman. His name is also his race, apparently. Then there are the Tusker Warriors, a militia of gun-toting walrusmen. I think we found Jamie Heinemann's tribe. But there were a few characters who didn't get toys for some reason, like the Amazon Warriors who appeared frequently in the series, and my personal favorite of the characters who didn't get an action figure, Mandora, the space cop that takes her job way too seriously.
Evil Chaser First Class Mandora, Interplanetary Control Force.
I'm writing you up for reckless rocketing and leaving the scene of a sideswipe. Now let me see your license and registration.
She always reminded me of Judge Dredd, just without all the killing. Also, what exactly does she patrol? The whole galaxy? On that little bike? Jeez, no wonder she's always on edge.
Broken running lights, unreadable galaxy numbers, visible radioactive exhaust. I want to see your papers, mister.
In my opinion, Season 1 peaked with the 5-part story arc Lion-O's Anointment. You see, the thing about the Thundercats is, you don't just become the leader. You gotta earn it. For 5 days straight, Lion-O had to prove his worth as leader by besting each of the Thundercats at their own special abilities. He needed to be stronger than Panthro, faster than Chitara, more cunning than the Thunder Kittens, and smarter than Tygra. Then his final challenge was to face Mum-Ra without the Sword of Omens, and he beat him! I really like this because it wasn't often back then you got to see a leader earn their place. And it shows that the greatest leaders are the best of everyone. The only thing is, it was originally broadcast over 5 days, which makes sense, and it even takes place over 5 days straight, but for some reason, the episodes are numbered with huge gaps in between. They didn't even fix this for the DVD release. Why? Still, I really liked that story arc, but like I said, it's where Season 1 peaked. After watching all of the episodes, I came to the conclusion that the majority of the episodes are kinda the same. The Thundercats are doing something, Mum-Ra tries to use that against them by deceiving them, there's a fight that the Thundercats overcome, they learn some kind of lesson, end of episode, rinse and repeat. They did face some other villains, but many of them were just one-off villains that never got expanded upon, and ultimately the format remains the same. And oftentimes they just straight up recycle ideas. I know there were at least 2 episodes that had the same plot of some jerk from space who wants to fight the Thundercats just because, and to have an obvious message about bullies. But that brings me to the worst part of the show, the obligatory lessons and morals for the kids. Of course, this kind of thing was everywhere in the 80s, but unlike shows like G.I. Joe that had separate segments unrelated to the episode, or Filmation cartoons that just shamelessly broke the fourth wall, Thundercats tried to integrate their morals into the episode, which can be good because many kids learn by example, but then they make the mistake of spelling it all out at the end of the episode in clumsy dialogue.
First impressions are often wrong. Trust is something that takes time to grow.
Yeah, that's great.
You made a mistake, but mistakes can be valuable if you learn from them.
Okay, we get it.
But without such natural resources, however insignificant they seem, life would not go on.
All right.
I should never have fought him. Chitara was right. I let him get to me. And until I can control that, I've got a long way to go.
Enough! I'll be good, I swear! Just shut up! Look, there's nothing wrong with having a good message for the kids, especially back then when it was a federal mandate, but it always amazes me that this was never done in a more natural way, or at least in a way that didn't treat the kids like idiots. Though to be fair, the morals are good, and I dare say some of them still hold up today. In one episode, a mysterious spaceship crashes on Third Earth that somehow affects Chitara's psychic powers, but the mutants get a hold of it, and while Vulture Man tries to study it, the others want to destroy it.
I don't like it. I don't understand it. We should get rid of it.
Destroy it before it harms us.
Yeah, I'd say that one holds up pretty well.
Warp gas.
I thought the Interstellar Council ruled against warp gas.
When did the mutants ever go by the rules?
Rules are only meaningful if people agree to follow them. Otherwise, they're just words.
That one definitely holds up. Then there was another episode where a scary-looking alien showed up at Cat's lair, and Lion-O and Snarf thought it was bad because of how it looked.
I am not your enemy.
Ha! You look pretty hostile to me.
What are you doing here anyway, you ugly monstrosity?
Me? Ugly? You are a fine one to talk, strange creature.
It was also being chased by a less creepy alien whom Lion-O assumed was good, but it turned out to be the bad one.
My sudden appearance must have alarmed you. But strange and frightening as I seem to you, so you appeared peculiar to me, and I did not know whether you would be hostile or friendly.
You know, sometimes I wonder about the kids that grew up watching this stuff. I mean, sure, it was annoying, but a lot of it was just common sense, and it had to sink in, right? What, were they just not paying attention? Now, not every episode ends like this. Some of the better ones, like Lion-O's Anointment, didn't have that awkward end segment, but even so, the worst part of this show had to have been the animation. It's not very good. Look, I know this was the 80s and not every show can look as good as Mighty Orbots, and I did read that they actually finished Season 1 in 83, despite the show premiering in 85, so it's no wonder it looks a bit older than it actually is, but it's still quite distracting. And while watching this, I came to a horrifying realization. This show might not be as good as I remember. But that was just Season 1.
Stay with us. Thundercats will be back after this. And now, let's find the Thundercats.
Season 2 opened up with another 5-part story arc called Thundercats Ho! And fun fact, this was originally supposed to be a theatrically released film. However, due to Transformers the movie bombing at the box office, they instead recycled it and chopped it up into 5 episodes of the series. Yet another victim of the fallout from that movie. At first glance, you can kind of tell because the animation has greatly improved. Clearly a lot more time and effort went into this. The plot revolves around 3 survivors of Thundera who were rescued at the last minute by some Burbles. See, I told you the Burbles were awesome! And it's discovered they end up crashing on Third Earth. Because of course they do. Now the Thundercats must find them before Mum-Ra does, and we get appearances from many of the heroes and villains we saw in Season 1 for an all-out action-packed adventure. Now this is the Thundercats I remember! There were even some cool new vehicles, like the Thundercats' new flying vehicles, and even the mutants got a new vehicle.
Weren't expecting the fist pounder, were you, Snowman?
You know, I'm here to try and convince people that this show wasn't stupid. Who came up with this? Even looking past the name, it's such a stupid design. So much so it was only seen one other time after this. Even though for some reason the toy is worth a lot of money now. Man, I wish I still had mine. We even see Mum-Ra get a new companion.
I need you for this, Mama. I love you too, Mama.
Aw, he's an adorable little hellhound. At the end, Mum-Ra is seemingly destroyed, and because of their bravery in the face of their various captors, the Thunderians are made into full-fledged Thundercats. There's Pumaira, who can jump high, I guess. Yeah, kinda got the short end of the stick when it comes to superpowers. Bengali, who's a master blacksmith and can even repair the Sword of Omens if it's damaged. He can also wield a hammer with such proficiency it would make Thor proud. Referencing another Marvel character, there's Linkso. During the destruction of Thundera, he was blinded, but since then his other senses were heightened, and he basically has Daredevil powers. His senses are so heightened that he can pilot a ship through a narrow mountain cave and out the other side by feeling alone. I don't know why they don't just fly over the mountain, but what do I know? If Lion-O's Anointment was the peak of Season 1, then Thundercats Ho was the peak of the whole series. Sadly, afterwards, the animation quality dipped again, but it still looks a little bit better than Season 1. It looks like the characters are drawn a bit better, and I think they pop out more. I like to consider this a soft reboot because a lot of the previous plot points and stuff that didn't fit well with the rest of the series were dropped, and things were a bit more focused. The ancient spirits of evil resurrected Mum-Ra, and he was far more powerful and aggressive than before, and they even removed his weakness to his own reflection.
When the ancients revived me, they made me more powerful than ever before. My reflection means nothing to me now.
But the biggest addition was the introduction of the Lunatics, a team of evil aliens from the moons of Plundar who were imprisoned on Third Earth by Mum-Ra after they tried to overthrow him. And they are no joke. There's the loudmouth leader Luna, Chilla with her icy breath, Tugmug who's super strong and wields a gravity-manipulating gun, Red Eye whose eyes can see everything, even Tygra when he's invisible, and arguably the most dangerous of them all, Oloro, who has the power to immobilize anyone with their own self-doubt.
Who are you? They call me Oloro. Now, put the nunchucks down. You don't stand a chance.
I don't stand a chance.
Fortunately, once he's disarmed, he's shown to be the coward that he is, but doing so is no easy task. Of all the adversaries the Thundercats fought, they've come the closest to defeating them multiple times. Even the other villains like the mutants fear them.
Lunatics? Whoa, they're here?
I also love the design of their fortress. That would make one hell of an album cover. It can move anywhere, but doing so takes a great deal of energy, and eventually they do run out of fuel. This show sure does a good job of balancing out overpowered villains. After that, the majority of Season 2 was the same stuff again. One of the biggest disappointments, though, was the lack of potential character development. Specifically for the kittens, because throughout the first season, they were often irresponsible, but there was one moment during Thundercats Ho where it seemed like they grew up a bit.
Sorry, but someone has to hold the fort.
What? Wily Cat. Teamwork, remember?
But they kind of reverted back to their old ways a few episodes later. They even almost get themselves killed. Thankfully, they get saved by this character who is both adorable and creepy at the same time. Still, this was a huge misstep. Though I did like that from this point forward, we started seeing Jaga a bit less, as if Lion-O no longer needed his guidance. Season 3 is where things start to get interesting. It's revealed that Thundera inexplicably begins to reform, and then we finally learn why the planet was destroyed. During an attack by the mutants, they brought their most powerful sword, the Sword of Plundar, to try and match the Sword of Omens. They lost, and Jaga tried to seal the sword deep within the planet, but the sword was so powerful that it eventually shook the planet apart trying to free itself. Wow! So Season 3 begins with another 5-part story arc where the Thundercats go out to investigate and find that a lot of the relics of their former society are still intact. However, the planet now resides near the moons of Plundar, which causes problems around the planet, like gravity shifts and permanent darkness. But Mum-Ra sets up a base there first and enslaves the Snarfs to find the Sword of Plundar and the other treasures of the Thundercats. He finds the sword, making him even more powerful than before, and the treasures get scattered about, so most of the season was about recovering them. Each of which has a powerful magic ability, such as the Book of Omens, which holds the secrets to the Thundercats. One of the best episodes has got to be the Jade Dragon. It was a powerful artifact that Hachiman gave to Jaga back during his time, which raises all kinds of continuity issues, but we get a really cool showdown between Mum-Ra and Hachiman. Toward the end of Season 3, this circus-themed bounty hunter guy manages to capture both the mutants and the Lunatics, and that's pretty much it for them for the rest of the series, aside from a few brief appearances later on. Ah crap, we made too many characters, so get rid of some, quick! Then the ancient spirits of evil grow tired of Mum-Ra's constant failures and give him one more day to destroy the Thundercats, so he goes all out in an epic season finale. But the Thundercats manage to hold him off until sundown, and he gets banished from Third Earth forever.
Is this the end of
So with all of the biggest threats taken care of, the Thundercats leave Third Earth, and Season 4 is mostly focused on them trying to rebuild their home planet. We get to see some new characters, including some other refugees from Thundera, and some interesting new villains. I always like the design of this tumbling upside-down robot guy. Though I find it weird that there are still some life forms on the planet considering what happened. They even find a mutant who is trapped underground. I have no idea how he could have possibly survived. There was even a sleazy Thunderian businessman who tried to overthrow Lion-O and rule over everyone for his own personal gain. Ugh, the nerve of some people. The season begins with another 5-part story arc where we find out how the planet reformed. A powerful sorceress named Jagara brought it back using some crazy gyroscope machine, because why the hell not? I've always liked her design as well. Now that is what you would call a space wizard. But Mum-Ra returns to cause more trouble. Even though he's been banished from Third Earth, he can still terrorize Thundera, and he continues to make life a living hell for the Thundercats. You know, at this point I think Mum-Ra's just being a dick. The highlight of this season was the episode Shadow Master. In this episode, it's revealed the ancient wizard Shadow Master has trapped the spirit of Lion-O's father, Cloudus, in the Shadow Realm. Insert Yu-Gi-Oh! Joke here. But Lion-O goes in to rescue him, and there's an awesome moment where they team up to defeat Shadow Master, and then they part ways with Cloudus officially passing the torch to Lion-O as Lord of the Thundercats. And the episode ends with a shot of his spirit standing next to Jaga's.
Where's Cloudus, Lion-O? Did you save him?
Yes, Panthro, I did. As to where he is now, let's just say he's with a friend.
Throughout Season 4, Thundera has shown to be very unstable, and in the series finale, they figure out how to restore it using some of the Thunderian treasures. Then Lion-O enters the Book of Omens to face off against Mum-Ra and this bigger, meaner-looking guy. He's victorious, of course, Thundera is restored, and Mum-Ra is presumably destroyed. But the thing about Mum-Ra is that he's ever-living. There were many times throughout the series where it seemed like he was killed for good, but he was always brought back, and even though we don't see him return in the final episode, it's implied that he will. Mum-Ra may have had his silly moments, but he'll always be a sobering reminder that evil never truly dies.
I am not so easily disposed of. For wherever evil exists, Mum-Ra lives. Mum-Ra lives.
And that's pretty much Thundercats. It had a lot of ups and downs, but I think it got better toward the end. The show was kind of riddled with inconsistencies. I'm pretty sure Season 1 was them just throwing every idea at the wall just to see what would stick. It made the show quite unpredictable, sure, but some things were just nonsensical. Like how everyone can breathe in space. Also, there's gravity. And listening to the end of episode Morals was pretty bad. Like I said, not all episodes ended this way, like the 5-part story arcs and some of the random episodes that were decent, but sometimes they would also end with a cringy joke and that cliched end of episode group laugh. My personal advice is, if you're gonna watch any episode outside of the story arcs, when you see the conflict get resolved and it fades out, you can just stop watching. So while there were many interesting ideas and even a few good episodes, I can't say the show has aged that well. And there were many other shows I've reviewed from this era that have aged a lot better, like Inhumanoids, Mighty Orbots, The Real Ghostbusters, and of course, The Mysterious Cities of Gold. But still, it has a lot of fun, memorable characters, really cool action, some crazy concepts, unpredictable adventures, decent series progression, especially in the last 3 seasons, and the musical score and the voice acting were great. Every character has their own musical cue, and if you ever have a chance to look up some behind-the-scenes stuff, it's a trip to watch.
I choose to go into the book.
Okay.
Motherfucker.
It's a flawed show, like a lot of 80s cartoons. I really don't know why people insist on reminding us who grew up with these shows that they're not perfect. Believe me, we know. But I'd like to think that it left room for improvement. In fact, it would be the perfect thing for a reboot.
Hey there, everyone! My name's Lion-O, and I'm the star of a new show called Thundercats Roar!
Ugh, then there's that. Look, I know you shouldn't judge a show until you've seen it, but look at it. Could it possibly be anything other than what we expect it to be? A good reboot will look at something, see its faults, and try to improve on them. I've pointed out many flaws of Thundercats in this review. Sure, it can be ridiculous and inconsistent, but you know what one thing wasn't a problem for this show? That it wasn't funny enough. Just because the show had its fair share of silly moments doesn't make this an okay thing to do. I don't want it to seem like I'm anti-reboot or anything, because I'm not. I can think of many great reboots that respected the source material and turned out really great. In fact, ever since my last episode, I've been playing catch up with a lot of new shows, and it turns out there's a couple of good ones out right now. Like Voltron. I'll be one of the first people to admit the original Voltron series did not age very well, but there's a new Voltron out now, and it's really good. There's even a new DuckTales show out. Yeah, DuckTales, which was already good. And the new one's great too. Goes to show you that when they give a show to the right people, they can make something awesome. And of course, there's been reboots of a lot of other 80s shows over the years that were also really good, including Thundercats. Yeah, in 2011, Thundercats got a new show. It was engaging, action-packed, had some great reimagining of the characters. Oh yeah, and it was also pretty funny too. But that, my friends, is a review for another day. As for the original show, it may have its flaws, but as far as I'm concerned, it's still pretty great. It was a big part of the 80s era of cartoons, and for all its faults, I can't imagine a world without it. So, I don't really know what people expected of my 100th episode. I think with a review series, a milestone like this is supposed to involve, me fighting an evil alternate reality version of myself, or having a big special effects spectacular, or, having some kind of major crossover event with a bunch of other people. We've never been that fortunate around here, and I gotta say, even I didn't really know what to expect of my 100th episode. I've been at this for so long that way back when I decided what my 100th review was gonna be, so much has changed. Like, I did not even expect them to reboot Thundercats again and then try and turn it into that. But somehow we've survived, and we've been through a lot. Like, I've gone through college doing this review series. I've had health issues. I've had various back-breaking, very underpaying jobs that I've had to work while doing this. I've had technical difficulties. I've been doing this on a budget too, so that's been another issue. And of course, going through various eras of unemployment, which I am unfortunately in right now. But somehow we made it. I don't know how we made it, but we made it. And we've even had to survive making the jump to 3 different video platforms, which was annoying and frustrating. And while I have had the most success here on YouTube, it's pretty blatantly obvious that YouTube does not like this channel, despite how much I've pushed and pushed. And because of that, I really don't know what the future holds for this review series. I will continue it for as long as I can possibly, have it for. But I don't know what the future, I don't know what lies ahead. But that being said, for everyone who's been watching, and especially anyone out there who's been watching since the very beginning, and I mean the very, very beginning, like back when I used to upload to Blip TV, I just want to say, thanks for sticking with me.
Thundercats forever!